behind the headlines of a trade deal which US President Trump has positioned as a big win. It was announced in the Oval Office with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer patched in on speakerphone. The deal involves Britain dropping its tariffs on US beef, ethanol, sports equipment and other products. The UK will also buy $10 billion of Boeing airplanes. In return, the UK can export 100,000 cars to the US at that lower 10% tariff rather than the current 25% rate. Separately, steel from the UK will see zero tariffs, but under the framework, British goods in general still face higher tariffs when they come to the United States. Let's get you more on this story with Ari Hawkins. He's a news reporter at Politico who covers all things trade. Ari, thank you so much for your time here. Ari, too early to perhaps pop the champagne bottle here. This is, after all, a framework of a deal. There will be weeks of negotiations going ahead, correct?
Correct. And thank you so much for having me. This is not a traditional free trade agreement, which the U.S. typically takes at least 18 months to negotiate. Some take years or even longer. And during the first Trump administration and the Biden administration, there were some trade deals that never came to fruition. This is a broad, almost memo or framework that lays the groundwork for negotiations to go forward. It is a good signal that despite a lot of the distrust between the U.S. and other global partners, there is still this line of communication that's open. And we did see tangible concessions on both sides. We saw tariffs decrease. However, the most major stressors on the relationship, particularly that 10% tariff that is hitting the United Kingdom, that's not going anywhere. And the countries have quite a lot of more negotiations to do.
Ari, the big question in everyone's mind really here is how did the UK manage to get in front of the queue when getting this far with the US? It was just in the last week of April, for example, the Treasury Secretary said one of the first trade deals would be with India, but instead it's the UK that takes first place. So how did that happen?
Has always had a bit of a soft spot for the United Kingdom. We saw a very conciliatory discussion between the Prime Minister and the American president when the Prime Minister was in Washington. Those talks went well. The Trump administration praised the Prime Minister's, quote, beautiful accent. And the United Kingdom doesn't have a trade deficit with the U.S., and that's been a consistent stressor for the U.S. And in some ways, this deal was easier to navigate than others. Unlike India, the UK also didn't face higher reciprocal tariffs beyond that 10% mark, meaning that this will lay the groundwork for more deals to go forward. It was among the easier ones to negotiate. And it's worth noting that even though it was an easier one to negotiate, a lot of those most contentious disputes were unable to be resolved. That's not necessarily a positive signal for negotiations, particularly with other economies like in Asia,
right,
particularly as the Trump administration tries to peel economies away from China.
Ari, before we let you go very, very quickly here, what lessons can other countries learn from this, the likes of India, for example, for negotiations going ahead?
There's quite a few lessons to learn. One of the primary points here is that this will be a long negotiation. There will have to be concessions. There will have to be public statements that indicate that talks are going well, that the Trump administration is able to negotiate, and clear, concrete concessions that countries are able to make and make very publicly. We saw that the UK has signaled that it is ready to negotiate on a number of different disputes, but it has praised both the negotiations between the countries as well as the Trump administration and its staff's ability to get this done.
Ari Hawkins, political reporter or trade reporter at Politico, thank you very much for your time here on Washington Watch.